I'm Marty Nemko. I know something about plays. I like going to plays sometimes. I like acting in plays sometimes and directing plays most times. So I thought I would share some thoughts from an insider about how to be a good audience member and get more out of going to your plays, some thoughts about how to be a good actor, and some thoughts about directing. So as an audience member, I think the most fun thing to look for is, first of all, are the actors mainly spewing lines, kind of reciting lines, or are they being that character? Do you believe that that's the character? The other thing I really like is looking for arcs. They teach in every playwriting, screenwriting, teleplay course the importance of there being character arcs, scene arcs, act arcs, and play arcs. An arc can go from happy to sad, sad to happy, happy to sad to happy, but look for the arc. I don't think that will detract from your pleasure in watching. It's kind of fun to see, the craft behind the overall experience. And the third thing I would say is most playwrights, most writers, most authors, they have a strongly held view of the world, which usually gets incorporated into their writing. So ask yourself, what is this playwright trying to manipulate you to believe? Is it to believe in poor people, people of color, anti-capitalism? It's rarely anything conservative like, pro-merit or pro-capitalism or, all rich guys in most plays in the last century are bad. But take a look and see what is the agenda of that playwright. And that will, it's kind of interesting to see the manipulative tools, the words, the characters, the costumes, the way the person walks, even the way the person breathes. And it may keep you from getting manipulated, or maybe you want to be manipulated. But there you go. Those are some thoughts about being an audience member that's good. I also think that community theater is underappreciated because you can get to sit up close for cheap. And you really experience a play in a way that you can't otherwise unless you're really close. You can feel it. I can't put it into words. Okay, now as an actor, the converse of that, the spewing lines thing is, you must be that character. You're not spewing lines. You must trust the playwright, that the playwright has put in the right words and feelings and whatever, and your job is to be that character that the playwright wants you to be. And that's in the way in which you off stage are preparing to get on stage, when you're in the wings and you're saying, I am that character. From the very first step, your posture, each step you take, how you take it, how quickly, how big the stride, how you breathe, how you interact, you are that character. And it can be something you can draw from your own personal life, but sometimes it's fun to be the opposite. For example, I recently played the Colonel Jessup in A Few Good Men, and I talked much slower and with more staccato, and I said that I was right. It's fun, completely different from who I am, but it was great to play that. I even had the costume. I had a wonderful Colonel's costume with all the fruit salad. That's another thing. Watch the costumes. Whether you're an actor or you're in the audience. Costumes matter. They help you be that character. Makeup matters. Be that character. Otherwise, it's silly. You're just reading aloud like you did in the first grade, and you were reading aloud in class when it came to be your turn. Be that character. The second thing to help you do that is, usually in most lines, you want something, or you're trying to convey something, a feeling usually. Whenever I'm cast in a role, I look at the script, and in the margin, I write, what do you want with that line? What do you want with that movement? It doesn't even have to be a line. It can be a movement. It can be an expression. It can be whatever. What do you want, and what are you trying to convey? That's what you do early, because if you keep that too much in mind during the performance, you're going to be stiff. We can't have that. But carefully, first start thinking about what the hell does this character want with that line? Why did he turn away? That's another thing, by the way, for actors, for audience. Blocking is very important, something that the audience doesn't notice. But believe me, a good director is very careful to block as to maximize the emotion, positive, negative, whatever. Where do they have each actor standing? How far from each other? When do they have them move? When do they have them turn away from each other? When do they go downstage? That's closer to the audience. When do they have them go upstage? Watch for the blocking. It adds a level of nuance that's very fun to observe when you're watching a play. The other thing for actors, it's a cliche, but it is true. Acting is reacting. You are paying attention to your acting partner. You're not just spewing your lines saying, oh, what am I going to do next? You have to get off book quickly. That is, you have to memorize your lines quickly so you can devote most of your mental energy to really paying attention to your acting partner. Or if there's no acting partner, the feeling you get as you're entering a scene and you're experiencing a feeling. React. React to the scene, react to your acting partner. Very important. Now, as a director, most important thing as a director is you can't steer the bus well unless you have the right people on the bus. So I do take my time, or at minimum, recruit the right people. I recruit people I know who are both fine actors and who will take direction well and who are enjoyable to work with. I love suggestions, but too many and too much of a know-it-all if they're really not a know-it-all is not good. So I recruit the best actors I can. Sometimes, even if they're not the right type, I'd rather have a good actor who's not the quite right type, because they can act it with costume, makeup, and their demeanor, everything, than a less good actor who looks the part. It's a mistake that directors make. They cast for type. Ideally, of course, I want them to look the part because that makes it easier, and I want them to be that part. If they're a New York Jew and all of that implies, it's hard to get a Milwaukee Christian to act like that. So, but I'd rather have the good actor. So you got to get the right people on the bus. And it's not just actor. I care a lot about who's my costumer. I care a lot about who light and sound is. All of that contributes. If it's music, I need a shitty musician can really ruin things. I don't need a large orchestra. I would settle for one pianist or a recorded music. But shitty music is going to be distracting, unacceptable. Unacceptable. Most people at my level, they put on their own makeup. But I will advise them when I see things, and I invite them to choose costumes they're going to feel good about. But I will be kind to make suggestions. Back to directing, I do err toward the positive. Actors, like most people, maybe more so, are sensitive. But I will not be shy if I see something that I think is important to tactfully make a suggestion. And if I try a suggestion twice and it's not working, I usually decide it's wise to drop it. Or if it's really important, very occasionally I might demo it in the rehearsal. Or more likely, in between, during a break in the rehearsal, I'll talk privately with them and try to see if I can coach them to come up with it, or I might demo it. But I try to avoid demoing because it's disempowering. Especially in our very collaborative world where you have to minimize the amount of hierarchy between director and actors. So I try to minimize that while still having the final say. I just directed something in which there was a singer who was cast to sing a couple of lines and she couldn't sing. And I had her try it a second time and she was clearly bad. And so I made an executive decision right then to have somebody else do those few lines of singing. You have to be crisp at times. Speaking of crisp, I keep my rehearsals short. They're usually never more than 2 hours. I've been to rehearsals as an actor where the rehearsals are 4 or 5 hours, especially tech. That is when they're checking light and sound or whatever. But I really work hard to be crisp. I allow usually 3 to 5 minutes at the scheduled time. Let's say it's 7 p.m. for people to bond, laugh, giggle, get a soft drink or whatever. But then we start, and I am crisp. I am very aware that people's attention and patience goes. So I won't say do it again unless I really feel it's worth it. I might say, when you go home and play with that, you might want to do X. Or afterwards, I might email my actors' notes, although I minimize that. I don't want to overwhelm people. Because remember, in the world of community theater, even though I try to act like it's Broadway, I try to make it as good as possible as though it could open on Broadway, I recognize it's not. And most people are not as serious as I am. And so I try not to give too many notes so they get overwhelmed. And that's it. That's it. That's all I really want to say. I think, it's about 10 minutes. That's fine. So those are my thoughts on being an audience member, an actor, and a director of plays. This will be a podcast, so as usual, I thank you for watching or listening. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. And certainly would welcome you taking a look at any of my 35 books. Perhaps most relevant to this is Starving Artist, where I do have a number of essays and short stories about various kind of creative work, not just acting. But in any event, all 35 are on Amazon. And I do like to end all my podcasts with this great quote that I think is a great quote, more timely than ever, from Frank A. Clark. We find comfort among those who agree with us, growth among those who don't.